Palestine has always been the root of everything I do, whether I'm singing a love song or I'm singing a direct song about Palestine. Palestine is always there. Just being a Palestinian, unapologetically. And whoever has a problem with that, well, tough. Maybe until I was 17 or 18, I was just obsessed with Kulthum. She was everything for me. Like nobody could sing after her. That's it. Like life ended after Kulthum. And my dad always said, well, Fairuz needs maturity, and when you mature, start to appreciate the depth that she brings into her music. My instrumentation, or dandanai in Arabic, in which basically it uses the voice as an instrument by focusing on different musical elements. It's actually difficult to be an ethical artist. Unfortunately, I receive invitations to perform in certain places that are normalizing their relationships with Israel. And I'm, of course, completely against that. Everybody felt the loss as if it was their own. So it was a very important moment for me to share my feelings about her murder and that of so many other Palestinian journalists who are affected daily.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Quartertones podcast. My name is Mikey. Today's episode is in collaboration with the Toronto Palestine Film Festival, who is presenting Ya Barghouti on September 27th in her Canadian debut. It is an honor to be welcoming Ya to the series and to be working with TPFF because we really respect the work they do. Welcome to the series.
Thank you so much for having me. Really glad to be here.
Okay, so let me just start off with asking you where you're calling from, because that might help give people a sense of your background and how you're coming into the show and how you approach all of your music.
So I'm currently based in Amsterdam. So I'm having this call from Amsterdam. And yeah, I've been living here for about 8 years. Did my bachelor's and master's here in music, and just really finding it a nice place to be able to put my music out there in different places in the world.
Yeah. How has being a Palestinian musician who is currently producing contemporary music, but also accessing sort of a more classical tradition, how has that changed pre and post October 7th as the sentiment towards Palestinians, Arabs, anyone who is standing in solidarity with Palestine, as those sentiments have sort of bifurcated so strongly in Europe, and we've seen really strong protest movements in solidarity for justice, but also really violent opposition as well.
Um, well, Palestine has always been, it's the reason why I do music as a Palestinian. I started um, wanting to be a musician ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. And just remembering the second Intifada when I was still four, and just seeing all these horrific things happening that I didn't really understand a lot about as a child. But also seeing my older sister, Jenna, who's a violinist, and seeing how important the violin was for her to express her feelings. And that really made me want to be a musician. So Palestine has always been the root of everything I do, whether I'm singing a love song or I'm singing a direct song about Palestine. Palestine is always there. So for me, prior to October 7th is pretty much the same. It's really that Palestine is always there. But I would say since October 7th, there's been such a huge shift in how people, view Palestine and how they, at first were very afraid of it because of the Israeli propaganda, the false information that was spread. A lot of people were finding it a bit, difficult to talk about Palestine. And then seeing how that was slowly shifting was honestly really refreshing, despite the sadness and the horror that we had to endure as Palestinians to see that change. But that's also something that we as musicians also feel on stage and in every country we visit.
Yeah. Has your work, the way you personally approach the work, changed? Like literally kind of the self that you bring to the studio, to the stage, to collaborations, to venues, have you felt a change?
Definitely, I think I've become way less apologetic which is something we don't do on purpose, but I always sense that as an Arab and as a Palestinian musician in Europe, sometimes you find yourself apologetic without really understanding why. It's just like something forces you to be. And since then, I'm so much less of that and so much more confident in who I am, just being a Palestinian unapologetically. And whoever has a problem with that, well, tough. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the attitude that I'm now having. But also on the musical side, it just feels like so much that I used to sing about is so irrelevant right now. Um, I just want to do what I feel like doing, and what I really feel like doing is just singing about what I feel, and that is the cause that's happening, the sorrow that we all feel, and the helplessness that we're just controlling all of us, just feeling extremely helpless.
Yeah. So I want to go back to your childhood. You mentioned your sister. If I go to preteen version of your life, what kind of music did you love when you were 12?
Well, that always makes me laugh because I was always into you can call it weird at that age to like. I was into um, very old classical Egyptian music, Arabic music. So from the 20s and the 30s, like for me, anything after 40s was considered pop. So I was just like listening to 20s,
What the
30s,
kids
and
are
my
listening to, the
yeah,
1950s.
what the kids exactly. And my parents were always like, "What is this?" Just taking long showers in a place like Palestine where water is very limited. So they were always teaching me a lesson about appreciating water and not spending a whole Kulthum song before the shower ends. So that was kind of the yeah. I used to really really just love that, and I would hear nothing else.
Yeah. The
And then
original
I
long form
also
content. Kulthum
yes,
songs.
exactly. Um, and then I was also really into jazz from a very young age, which was a bit, surprising to come along with the Egyptian side. I was really into jazz, really into gospel, flamenco, Indian music, really. And like my parents, I always say that I'm extremely lucky to have parents who um, are so diverse in their music styles and who made sure that we were also listening to all kinds of stuff and just always keeping an open mind. And I think that really helped shape my musical identity and the diversity that I like to bring into my music
Did you did you become obsessed with certain singers or certain albums or certain songs?
all the time. Um, well, until I was like, maybe until I was 17 or 18, I was just obsessed with Kulthum.
Yeah.
She was everything for me. Like nobody could sing after her. But that's it. Like life ended after Kulthum. That's how I felt. Um, and then there was the era, and that's still going, which is the era of Fairuz. And then I always had a weird relationship with the voice of Fairuz when I was younger. I always thought that Fairuz's songs were so easy and they're like, nothing compared to Kulthum's long songs. And my dad always said, well, Fairuz needs maturity, and when you mature, you'll start to appreciate the depth that she brings into her music. And then I tried to sing one of her so-called easy songs that I thought, and I failed miserably. And only then did I learn, like, wow, she has so much, complexity. It's the simple complexity, السهل الممتنع, that really just that's the theme of the music, and that's when I really fell in love with it, and her voice and her expression and just really everything that she does.
How did you fail? What does failure look like? How do you fail to sing a Fairuz song? And I guess
Um,
then the inverse is, how do you succeed to sing a Fairuz song?
For me, I failed because I was only trained, vocally trained to sing the, the Egyptian classical Arabic music, which requires a very, um, you know, full voice, a chesty voice, sometimes even a bit nasal. It's a lot of ornaments, and the ornaments are very expressive. They're very front. They're very in your face. Um, and then with Fairuz, it's really the exact opposite. So trying to sing a song with only doing the very minimal ornaments that are needed to add to the song, it's extremely difficult when you were not used to. And so my thing was that I tried to sing, I think it was Shawara al-Quds al-Atiqa. That was my first attempt for Fairuz. And it just sounded horrible. Like it sounded like, I don't know, like maybe me in 1920 in Egypt singing Shawara al-Quds al-Atiqa in a very Egyptian way and so not Fairuz. It just didn't work, you know? And then when others try to sing Fairuz, that's also another problem that you can face the other extreme, which you think, okay, let me take off all the ornaments and all the, spontaneity of the performance and just really sing it direct and thinking this is how Fairuz is. Then you try to do that and it sounds so boring and so empty and it's so not Fairuz. It's nothing. So really finding the thing in between, finding what she does is pure magic. Like it took me years to really know how to do that. Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, the reason why I asked you about when you were 12 was because from reading your bio, like 14 is when you made your entrance on the grand stage, which is young for any profession. I wonder if you can go back to what you thought the career was that you were sort of embarking on as you became a teenager and what it is now.
I think it was mostly, I really thought that it would just be about filling up venues and selling tickets and just having to be on stage for that. And then life is good. I think the major surprise that I saw as I grew up is really finding your musical identity in a world where music has become extremely commercial, the music industry, and having to decide between that and between what you like, but at the same time being relevant, having digital success, as well as live performance success. It's just a much more complex equation than I had thought. It's not about the music, unfortunately. It's not purely about the music. Music is only like 20% of it, and the rest is really a lot of self-doubt, questioning what you're doing, a lot of work on trying to find the common grounds between you and what the music industry wants. So yeah, that was the major shift, I think.
Interesting. Okay, we'll play a few clips today, but this is the first one. Let me pull it up and then maybe you can introduce it. Okay, so before we get started, do you want to just give a sense to those listening who can't see the screen what clip we're about to listen to and what to look out for, and then we'll play it?
Sure. So this is Longa Hijaz Kurd, and Longa is the name of the music form or structure in certain Eastern instrumental music. And Hijaz Kurd is the name of the maqam used in the song, in the piece. So usually it's an instrumental piece played by instruments. And in this recording, I'm singing it or playing it using my voice and using a new vocal technique I'm developing, which we call instrumentation or dandanai in Arabic, in which basically it uses the voice as an instrument by focusing on different musical elements.
Okay. All right. Listen to it. This is spectacular.
Thank you.
I hear so much Ella Fitzgerald and sort of all this amazing different type of influences. What do you hear when you listen to it? What
It
is
might
the
sound
DNA?
weird, but I just really hear myself, in the sense that there's so much confusion, in my musical identity, which I always feared. But now I've grown to really appreciate, and I think this technique really helped me do that, because we hear it a lot in scat singing, like you mentioned, Ella Fitzgerald and many other jazz singers scat sing. And then we also hear it in Indian music, where you also hear a lot of singers doing all kinds of rhythmical things in their voices. So the element of using the voice as an instrument is not my invention at all. But combining that with Arabic music and trying to find the seamless connection between Arabic music and those genres, where as a listener, you're not hearing the Arabic part ending and then the jazz part starting, and then again, the whatever part, you're really hearing it as one seamless sound. That was the main point of this technique. So for me, it's just really combining everything I like doing in this one thing.
Is it similar to jazz or other improvisational based forms, such that there's like a head and then you guys decide to take, 32 bars each or so, like, and do your own thing? Or is it, no, this is the form, it's written down, you perform it as is, and you get it right every time?
It's actually completely open. So one of the things I never really felt connection to in jazz was that, just to being put in this specific form that I have to perform in. I think it's amazing when you're able to do that, and many jazz musicians can do that amazingly. I was really trained in an Arabic way, where you switch when you feel like switching. And once you feel like the story you've given to that particular part has now come to an end, and it's time to move on. And so I like to bring the elements of jazz that I really like doing, but putting them in the very open form of Arabic music. So each time we perform this song live, you can hear it differently. It's very different number of bars. It's a very different structure. It's a very different buildup. Some things, of course, remain the same, certain lines that I like to keep. But in general, it has a lot of spontaneity that can really go wherever you feel like, going.
Yeah. No, it's really amazing. Is it always performed with voice and piano, or are there other instrumentations that you've used?
I usually do it with my quartet. Well, with me, the quintet, but it's so piano, bass, drums, and qanun. So I think that also, in a way, the structure of that band also brings together a lot of diversity, because each one of the musicians are just so uh, beautifully trained and so talented. So the pianist you just heard is Tony Rue, and he's based in Amsterdam, and he's also part of my band. So yeah, it's just always performed differently.
Yeah. If you were performing this is a vocal technique, right? So I wonder how it would feel if you were to perform these lines on the flute, and if it would feel like a completely different song to you.
Definitely, because the original version of the piece is instrumental, so
Yeah.
it's made for you as an instrumentalist to just really play it very fast, and then you just show your talent as an instrumentalist.
Mm.
So it's a very different feeling, I would say, because the voice is not made to sing that the fast. Like, there's so many different things that make it more difficult for the voice to do rather than an instrument. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a very different experience
Amazing.
between the flute and the voice.
All right, let's pull up the next one. So tell us a little bit about what this is, and give us a little context.
So this was actually one of my first performances in Amsterdam. I was still a student. And it's a video we did with the Amsterdam's Andalusian Orchestra in Blumhouse, which is a very nice music venue in Amsterdam. So yeah, we performed this concert, and we ended it with Ya Helu, also starting with a little solo using nice instrumentation. But then this video kind of went viral at one point, and it became my most listened to song, and which was for me very, very weird, because I almost did not want to upload this for various reasons. As a musician, I'm like, oh, I did that wrong. I should have done that better. And so I was almost not going to post it, and then I did, and it became my most viewed song. So yeah, that's Ya Helu.
All right, let's listen.
آه يا حلو ويا مسليني ياللي بنار الهجر كويني آه يا حلو ويا مسليني ياللي بنار الهجر كويني إلا المدام يا جميل واسقيني يا عين من كتر شوقي عليك
Haram, this violinist. They zoom in on him when he's coughing.
One of the reasons I thought the video shouldn't be
No,
up.
I was shown. Leave the guy alone. He's playing perfectly. Zoom in on him every other moment.
Exactly.
So I want to. I'm really curious about the audiences in Europe. I mean, so Afikra as an organization, we host events all over the world. And we host them in places like Berlin and Amsterdam and Paris and London, New York, LA. These places that from afar you hear news of insane anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab sentiment. Not only sentiment, laws, right? And meanwhile, in just a couple of days, we're going to New York and hosting a huge celebration of 10 years of Afikra in some of the most prestigious
Congratulations.
venues. Thanks. In some of the most prestigious venues in New York. So clearly there are audiences who want to celebrate culture and organizations and figures from the Arab world who are doing something positive and really standing up for justice. Holland and Amsterdam and Europe, I'm curious about how these types of performances are taken in by the public. How have you found the public in places like Holland?
I think it's different with each venue because some venues are they target more of the Arabic community or the Moroccan community. So in Amsterdam, for example, so you find a lot of, for example, this concert, we had many Arabs in the audience who were singing along with the songs and clapping and saying Allah and just really participating in the live concerts. And so yeah, you have that kind of the aspect, and you also have venues where you find, it's more tailored to Dutch audiences and targets Dutch audiences that have a very different way of interacting.
Yeah.
And at first, I thought that was very. I used to be a bit, feeling weird on stage because I would do something and then I would expect people to clap or to, to show that they're happy and they're not, and I would be like, what if they don't like it? But at the end, they would have like a very long standing ovation. I would know that, okay, well, they liked it. They just have a very different way of expressing it. So it's just very, very different. I would say, I think the audiences that come and watch my concerts, they know that I'm Palestinian and that the content of what I'm doing will be related to Palestine. And I think so far it's gone pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm always worried that at any moment that these audiences and these publics will flip, right? And at some point they'll go from we like you, we like you, we like you, but now it needs to be a both sides type thing, right? But do you condemn blank? But do you do this? 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 And at some point, it's just like we're stuck. We're painted into a
Right.
corner. I'm always, for myself, really, really worried about that, and so I'm curious if that's something that you're also worried about too.
Well, definitely. And especially in the beginning, I think that was a real thing that was really happening, and trying to conquer that and to keep going despite that can be very difficult. I think now the shift that's happening is actually pretty positive with all the student movements that we saw, globally. I think has really helped shape the movement of people in Europe and elsewhere. I think there's a lot of awareness that's starting to happen, and people, for example, I've never seen protests as big as the ones we saw in Amsterdam for Palestine. And many people, many Dutch people were against that and were, having like, yeah, why is this protest happening? And we shouldn't let it happen. But it happened. And there were hundreds of thousands of people, including many Europeans, participating in these protests. So I also think the type of audiences that like music and that will come to a concert by Palestinian artists are people who are educated enough to know, what this concert will be about. But there's always the worry that Europe is shifting completely towards, very extreme right-wing directions, and that's always going to have an effect on everyone, including art. So that's always a worry that we have to live with and just keep going despite it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the show that's happening in Toronto. It's happening on the 27th. Maybe can you tell us a little bit about what people might expect for the show?
Yeah. So basically, this will be my debut in Canada, and it's it feels really nice to have that at the Toronto Palestine Film Festival. Um, I would like to dedicate this concert as part of a series of concerts that I've been doing, which is titled Unheard. And it's an evening of that I say it's an evening of grief and hope, uh, because we have so much grief, and it's what we have in common right now. And when I'm on stage, I feel it with the audience. I feel like we're sharing our grief. We sometimes cry together, and we sometimes um, just let ourselves feel so emotional in the songs. But there's also room for hope and maybe even some slight joy sometimes in these very dark times. I think music can have this effect of powerful resistance that we can all feel part of, and I think that's very important for me to have on stage. So this will be reflected in the songs that will take the audience on a journey of grief and hope, um, and hopefully some joy.
Yeah. We're coming up on a year of this genocide that Israel's doing in Palestine. And I wonder, how has your approach to performing and connecting with audiences changed over that year? And when was the first time that you were able to actually get back on stage and communicate all those things that you're talking about, that grief and that joy, and that pride publicly?
Um, well, for the first months, I was completely just frozen. I think I was like everybody else, just really staring at the news all day and just not sleeping well. Just feeling like, what is going on? What is this world we live in? What can I possibly add as a musician to anything? It just all felt really tone deaf. Like I don't want to be singing right now on stage. I don't want to feel joy. I don't want to feel hope because there is no hope at that point. It just felt really miserable. Um, and then in November, I was invited to the London Jazz Festival, and I had the invitation from before, of course, and I was almost going to cancel because it was really hard for me to imagine myself being on stage. Um, but then after talking to many people, many friends, most of them in Palestine, it really was, brought to my attention how important it is that we try to carry on and to use our platforms, no matter how small or big they are, to use them to make a difference, even a very small difference. So I decided to go ahead with a concert, but change the theme. So I came up with the Unheard series, dedicating the concerts to Gaza, donating some of the proceeds to humanitarian relief funds in Gaza, and really just trying to talk about it to audiences that maybe do not want to talk about it. And it was very difficult, but that was for me the starting point in November of last year to really start.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossibly hard. And I'm so grateful when I see artists like you who are trying to do it, because it's, for me as an audience member, it's not only the music that is moving, it's witnessing the artists actually try to process their emotions, like, bear for me to see.
Yeah,
It serves as this like
exactly.
very, very powerful uh manual, like,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of people might think of artists as kind of like a separate entity from them because we're on stage and we're, even physically like we're on top, and there's a bit of distance between us and the audience. And I really like to break that and to remind myself and people that we're just humans who are having all these feelings, and it's so difficult for us to be on stage. And I remember singing in London, أحن إلى خبز أمي by Marcel Khalifa, and I cried on stage. I don't think I've ever cried on stage, but I did, and it's something I've always tried to avoid, because as a singer, the moment you cry, you just lose your control over your vocal cords and intonation and all this perfection that we try to strive for. I think just putting that aside and just let the vulnerability become part of the music, or the most essential element of the music, I think it's a very pure experience
Yeah.
to experience as an artist.
What about it made you cry?
Just really thinking of all the children who do not have mothers, and who will never have the coffee that their mother makes, or the bread that she bakes, or the hugs that she could give them. And I think for me, the most difficult thing is all these children that are still alive in Gaza who have nobody, and nobody to just make them feel that maybe there's hope, nobody to hug them or to comfort them, to cover their ears. It's really that image that haunts me daily, and I think that's the hardest one.
Yeah. In some way, I mean, you talked a little bit about your musical experience, your musical influences. Who are some of your influences from this perspective of how to actually maintain authenticity and maintain integrity as an artist? Not from a sort of a discipline standpoint, not from a musical excellence standpoint, but from a connection with the audience and a fidelity with yourself, maintaining that actual loop. Who's taught you how to do that?
I think it's the experience of many artists combined, because I don't think it's just one. I think a lot of artists like Ziad Rahbani, or Marcel Khalifa, or Fairuz, or so many have really put their expression in music and have never questioned it, or have never compromised it. That's the word. They never compromise that. I think that's always very inspirational to see that. That I would like to also, as much as possible, try to do that, not to compromise my at least ethical side to my music.
Yeah. Super hard. Unbelievably
Yeah.
hard.
Very hard.
Yeah. Do you ever feel yourself slipping, and then you're like, I need to get this stuff together?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times I receive invitations to perform in certain places that are normalizing their relationships with Israel, and I'm of course completely against that. And my first intuition is always like, of course not. But then sometimes, you're a human. I'm 27 and beginning of my career, and you sometimes hear the amount of money that they're willing to pay, or the things that they could offer, and you just feel like, wow, I mean, it's so difficult to say no to this. But then I sleep on it, and I wake up feeling like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't say yes to it, because I really want to sleep at night feeling okay about myself and about my music choices. And I realize that there's a price to pay, of course. It's actually difficult to be an ethical artist, unfortunately. And in this music industry, it's really conquered by so many companies that are far away from my ethical points of view. It's very difficult. It's a choice that I have to make every day. It's not just one choice that I make once and then it stays. No, it's something I have to work on every day, and remember why I do it, and why I was raised to do it as well.
Yeah. Oh, let's listen to another one of these. It's just like what you're saying, just reverberates through so much
Yes,
of me, and yeah, it hurts. So
it does.
um, let's play the next one. So tell me why you chose this.
Um, so Nasheed al-Ard, or Anthem of the Land, um, we made this song in my first album. I composed this song, and the lyrics are by my Palestinian friend, Aus Shaheen. And we released it uh, the days following the murder of Shireen Abu Aqle, um, the Palestinian journalist who was shot dead by an Israeli sniper while on duty. Shireen was a friend of mine and of my family's, and even if I think everybody, despite their personal connection to Shireen, everybody felt the loss as if it was their own. So it was a very important moment for me to share my feelings about, uh, you know, her murder, and also that of the so many other journalists, Palestinian journalists, who are affected daily by the Israeli regime.
All right, let's play a little bit of this.
إن متنا جميعا فمن يرثي الحمام؟ من منا يحصي السنابل؟ يا وطني المقاتل، أجراس الفجر آتية وعتم الليل زائل.
يا
Is that something that you're going to be performing in Toronto?
I'm not sure yet because this song, although I really want to perform it,
Yeah.
it requires a bigger band and a choir, which we don't have. Um, so I'm still trying to find a way to do it, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it would work.
I mean, wow. Yeah, whenever we do these episodes and I have the privilege of playing these in front of the artist, I always wonder what it must feel like to watch them.
Um, it's kind of, it just brings back a lot of memories. Like I'm thinking um, of, all the work that we put into this video and
Yeah.
how difficult it was to bring all these children and make them
Where did you shoot
behave.
this?
We did it in Beirut in Palestine, the West Bank. So just gathering all these people, but also then when we were in the editing process, Abu Aqli was murdered. So then that also really affected the way we want to, put out this video and the changes that we want to make in the production. And it's just a bit painful to kind of go back to all that.
Yeah. Is your family still there?
Some of them, yes, in Ramallah
Yeah.
and in Akka.
Yeah. It's undoubtedly going to be an unbelievable show. Let's listen to the last clip and then we will wrap up. So how about you introduce this one?
So yes, this was part of the Outmark Festival in the Netherlands in Amsterdam, and it's one of the biggest outdoor festivals. There are thousands and thousands of humans there, and they chose this song, Le Beirut, to perform, and it was just a very beautiful moment for me to have that.
Amazing.
لبيروت من قلبي سلام لبيروت وقبال للبحر والبيوت لصخرة كأنها وجه بحار قديم هي من روح الشعب خمر هي من عرقه خبز وياسمين فكيف صار طعمها طعم نار ودخان لبيروت أنت لي أنت لي عانقيني أنت لي رايتي وحجر الغد وموج سفر أزهرت جراح شعبي أزهرت دمعة الأمهات أنت بيروت لي أنت لي
If you could go through a show without having to perform on the flute, would you prefer that, or do you feel kind of a little sort of bare if you don't have the ability to also play flute at a show?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't like to perform without the flute.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to, go just perform one song as part of something without the flute, and it always feels like something is missing in my hands. I almost don't even know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like having it.
Yeah, it's funny, like guitarists who don't know what to do if they don't have a guitar on their lap, and pianists who don't
Yes,
know what to do unless they're behind the piano.
you're like, what are these?
Where
What
do
do
I
I
put
do?
my fingers
Yeah,
if they don't rest? If I can't
exactly.
hold the
Yeah,
neck? Um,
exactly.
well, it's such a pleasure to it's a pleasure to listen to your music. It's a pleasure to speak with you. And
Thank you. Likewise.
I'm really, really thrilled to have had you on the series and to hear these stories from you. And I wish you nothing but the best at this show and your whole tour. And Ajad, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you and being here.
Yeah. So people can go to TPFF online, Toronto Palestine Film Festival. There are still some tickets available. Probably not that many by the time you hear this, but please go check them out. Ajad, thanks so much.
Thank you, Mikey.